thank you because you could be a whole lot of places tonight, but you chose to be up in here, and we're going to be talking about the secrets of the Metu Neter and the magic mushrooms. Long time ago, I don't know how long ago, could be almost 20 years now, when I first got on my journey of consciousness, it seemed like all roads led through Egypt. You know, it was like no matter what, I had to get to Egypt. And then when I got to Egypt, they started telling me, yo, it's not Egypt, it's Kemet. And man, even before that, my first exposure, I went to a historically black university, North Carolina A&T State University. Wait a minute. Before I do all this telling of the story, let me go over here and get my co-host. Let me go get my brother from another mother. I don't know what I call him, a psychedelic engineer, a psycho trooper, a super explorer, martial artist, great father. He just a bad boy all the way around. I need y'all to put your hands together for my ace up in the place. He's son. It's Fire Walker.
Hey, I like that. What'd you say? Psycho Trooper? I like that. Psycho Trooper. I ain't heard that yet.
Psycho Trooper, I got that from my man out in Honolulu. He does the human design, and he says he did so many psychedelics for days on end. He said one time he did ayahuasca for like 2 weeks straight. So he calls himself a psycho trooper. And then the more I look at what we're doing, you know, in the conversations we have in above ground and below ground, I'm like, man, why we ain't, you know, we qualify. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because we pushing the envelope, or, you know, do you think it's appropriate, the name Psycho Trooper?
Absolutely. Immediately I gravitated toward it because, yeah, like you said, the above ground and the below ground conversations. That's the below ground conversations. My goodness.
Right. So I was just giving up a little background about how I came into, you know, rode up on the Metu Neter, and I was just gonna get some background while we wait on Baba Kilindi to fall up in here, and let me send him a quick text. Yeah, he know we get it started and might get a little long-winded at the beginning, but for me, I came across the Metu Neter I think in 1989, and I was at North Carolina A&T State University. And it was some 5%ers, some brothers and sisters from the Nation of Islam, and some brothers and sisters from the Asar Set Society, which I had never heard of. And that was the first time I saw the Metu Neter. And we was like, yo, we're going to make this thing called the History Club and keep it grassroots. And, you know, inshallah, it's still popping now 20-plus years later. You go through Greensboro, you just going over to A&T and say, what a History Club at? I don't know if they still meeting on Mondays or Wednesdays, but still thriving over there. And it's just been a wild ride, man, because like I said, at one point, it was like everything, all roads led through Egypt. What kind of journey was it for you when you guys started? Or when you first came across the Metu?
I'll never forget, I think it was the late 90s, we went over one of my partner's houses to rap or freestyle or something like that, and his older brother had a copy of the Metu Neter by Raul Nefertari, man, on the coffee table, and I remember it seemed like it glowed on the coffee table, and I remember flipping through it like this is the deepest thing I've ever seen in my life. That was my first introduction, was that book, and you know, just I had the chance to meet a few people, like you said, from the Asar Set Society and listen to some audios. And it just kind of opened my mind to Kemet, and of course, then it spilled over into Bobby Hemmett and other things. But I haven't had a chance to really get into the mysteries the way that I think that Baba Kilindi is about to present it tonight, though. He's taking it to a whole nother level with it, I think, that a lot of people are not familiar with. Straight up.
What do you mean, man? What are you saying? Why do you think that? How many levels of the Metu Neter are there?
Oof,
I thought you were just going to read the book, and that was just going to be it.
Hey, well, apparently there's multiple symbols inside of symbols, like one of those Russian dolls. That's the way I'm hearing it. It's a little deeper than Wallace Budge, apparently.
Facts.
Apparently,
Facts.
it's deeper than
So,
yeah.
yeah. So, if for those of you, if y'all decided to make this your first show that you're listening to, I highly, highly suggest that you go back and catch show number 1. I mean, seriously, that was when we did all the white belt, groundwork, doing our squats, getting our waist open up, doing our basic yoga postures, but, learning how to salute in the class and take your shoes off before you come in on the mat. But tonight, I think it's going to be a little different than that. Matter of fact, every night. Remember at the beginning I was calling this like part 1, part 2, part 3. Then I was like, nah, these are episodes, So I think y'all want to get ready, because if you went back and listened to the first show and then you're all the way caught up, you good. I just had a friend of mine, her phone cut off last week when we were talking about seminal retention and ejaculation and the prime directive of planet Earth. And she was like, where's the rest of that show at? So I don't know if we're going to touch on that tonight, but next week we're going to be talking about sexual energy, entheogens, and tantra, and relationships, and love, and poly, and mono, and algorithms, and the matrix. I don't even know what the title is going to be next week. However, I would just tune in. That's about all I can say for that one, right? And it's right before. It's going to be the day before Valentine's Day. All right, so we on the next Wednesday, right before Valentine's Day. Y'all know the 15th is the end of cuffing season. Okay, so if you didn't get your Valentine's in, you didn't go ahead and snap somebody up. If you're not familiar with cuffing season, you're going to have to go Google it. You will find out what cuffing season is all about. But, yeah. So tonight, man, I'm just really, really excited about how we getting ready to get this thing started, man. I have, like, several questions, but I don't even know, like, where to get it started at. But I think we're just going to get it popping and get brother to jump in and just release what's on his heart. Tonight is The Secrets of Metu, Nete, and the Magic Mushrooms with guest Kilindi Iyi. The call-in number is 917-889-3803. And, yes, this is episode 5, We've read about the mysteries, but what about stepping into the mysteries? Are the hieroglyphics real, and how do we use them? Do they hold the answers to the secrets of ancient Kemet? Well, tonight, international scholar and master teacher Kilindi Iyi of the Tamarian Institute joins Coach Khayr and Firewater on Coach K Radio to reveal the secrets of the Metu, Nete, and the magic mushroom. Now, I promise you, in all my years, I never thought those two would go together. As usual, this will be an envelope-pushing conversation, and there's going to be a ton of extras. Pen and paper is a must. Feel free to not only call in to listen, but press 1 at any time if you have a comment or question. We're going to see you right now, and don't forget to bring or invite a friend. Share this on your social media timeline. Don't hide it, divide it. I need everybody to get on their feet, put their hands together for Baba Kilindi Iyi. Peace, Baba Kilindi. How you feeling this evening?
I'm well. How are you?
Oh, man, blessed by the best.
Okay, real good.
I can hear you loud and clear. Loud and clear.
So,
while you getting comfortable and set up. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was saying to get this started, dealing with the Metu, Nete, or Metu, Nete, according to how you deal with the pronunciations and things like that, because it's a plethora of different persuasions of dealing with these pronunciations, and also the reading of the Metu Neter. First and foremost, there's a esoteric and an exoteric rendition of the Metu Neter, or hieroglyphics from the Greek, meaning picture signs, or sacred picture language from the Greeks, and Metu Neter meaning the mouth of the gods, or the mouth, or the language of the gods, or the word of the gods. And when we talk about the gods, that's just a translation. We're not saying that the Neteru or the Neter or the Neter are gods, because they are not. Matter of fact, Africa does not have any gods. That's a concept from a different part of the world after the fall. I'm not an expert in the translation of the exoteric Metu Neter or hieroglyphics, so we don't have to get into that argument. I can give a little bit of my background. I actually studied with Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark, and also Dr. Simmons in Detroit back in the mid-'70s. We had a college, Shaw College of Detroit, which was one of the black colleges that we had in the city of Detroit. And every summer, a scholar by the name of Clarence Harris would bring Dr. Ben in. As a matter of fact, he would bring Dr. Ben in early as 69 and 70, and it is his tapes, and he has them reel to reel with a lot of Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark in their earlier, younger days on reel to reel that we have to actually get into and get on the internet. And the actual original taping of Black Man Wake Up, which Dr. Ben did. So Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark, they would both get several weeks in the summer. Dr. Ben would get 2 weeks of teaching from like 9 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock at night. He would do that for 2 weeks. And then since he had a girlfriend in Detroit, he would stay an extra 2 weeks. So we would have like a month of Dr. Ben teaching exclusively to, us in Detroit. And then I would travel to New York and, First World Alliance and the East and all those different places that had culture and things at headquarters, which at the time was Harlem and Brooklyn and the rest of New York City. A lot of things going on. And, later, just traveling, So I went to Kemet, which is the proper name of, or Kim, the proper name for what we called the Egypt back in the 79, 80, back when you could actually do something there, before Hawass and before they put up the fences and had the guards and things like that. So I climbed, would climb to the top of the pyramids at night, spend the night on top of the pyramids, would go inside the king's chamber and lay in the sarcophagus, climb on top of the Sphinx and try to find the secrets and things like that. And, so that's just a little bit, because I don't want to go a lot into what I done, but get into the meat of this subject. And one other thing I did when I came back from Egypt, I brought with me the Acacia nilotica, which is the tree of life, some of the tree of life that is the repository of the records, records of the Acacia DMT back in 79, 80. So, this was before a lot of people were going to Egypt and things like that, and just had a wonderful time learning. Searching out books in London, in the book area in London, and then moving through New York City, trying to pick up books and things like that for my library, which grew quite extensively over the decades, I had close to 10,000 books, which the supermajority of them I read, not just picked up to have books, but, these are the type of background I have in the subject and dealing with it. And I also went to workshops and seminars with Roosevelt Roberts, who, taught, out of Chicago, Metu Nete, and Sister Riquetti, and Theophilo Binga, and I study with Brother Bonacci when I have time. But I'm not an expert in hieroglyphic translations, as I said, in the reading of the text, because everybody in ancient Kemet didn't do everything. Everybody wasn't a multi-genius. So when I want translations done and things like that, I bring them to Bonacci, who is one of the elders of the Metu Nete in the African community of the United States. And everybody knows Brother Bonacci and his work. He has the Metu Nete course and class online that many of you, if you are interested in learning how to read the Metu Nete, his class is the one you should definitely go and do online. And if you get a chance, if you're in Detroit, go by one of his classes. So that's my background with the Metu Nete and the hieroglyphics in the exoteric sense. Recommended works on the flavor of Egypt or Kemet, I would suggest the works of Sforla de Lubitz, and of course, the regular Budge and Faulkner and things like that. If you want to learn to translate and things like that, the regulars, and it's about really if that's your niche where you want to be as far as your study of ancient Kemet. I basically stopped so much in my study of Kemet because it's just it's just one particular time in Africa. There are many different places in Africa that are open for study, and there's a lot of people studying Africa and Kemet particularly during the dynastic period. And some of my gatherings from this course with Kemet over, for 45 years, and things like that, is that, a lot of the things that the Egyptologists and people, anthropologists and things like that, are viewing Kemet as and talking about the things of Kemet during the dynastic period are pretty much wrong, because they're dealing with linear dates. And one thing that Kemet talks about and teaches us is that the earth runs in cycles. It's not a linear from the lesser to the greater. And we can look at that in ancient Kemet. Even when we talk about the pyramid in Saqqara, the Mastaba, what they call the first pyramid of Zoser. And that's not actually the first pyramid. That's actually the last pyramid. The pyramid complex at with the Great Pyramid, at Giza, is the oldest pyramids in ancient Kemet or in dynastic Kemet. It goes back more than in its repaired state, 38,000 years, because that's one of the alignments with the three pyramids and the stars in Orion's belt. The last alignment was 10,600 years ago, in the time of Leo, where the Sphinx on the equinox, the sun rises right in the middle of the head of the Sphinx. So these are astronomical calendars. These are astronomical alignments that happen, that happen at a particular time. At the time that they say that the Sphinx was built, 2500 BCE, that was the time of Taurus. They wouldn't have built, if you read Schwaller de Lubitz and other works, when the stars are in a particular place, the Kemetic people build what their ancestors did, alignments according to the sign in the heavens. So in the Taurian age, you would see the proliferation of the bull. During the time of Aries, you would see the proliferation of the ram. When you see the time of Leo, you would see the proliferation of the lion. So when we talk about Kemet, and we're talking in the dynastic period, that's not ancient Kemet. That is the reconstruction, the reemerging of Kemet and how they viewed their ancestors and put together things that their ancestors did, because the dynastic Kemetic people are not the ones that built the pyramids and built the Sphinx. They are those who picked up the legacy of those who built the pyramids and the Sphinx. And that goes into what we've been talking about a little bit the last couple of times, the Younger Dryas and the impact cataclysm that happened at 12,800 BCE and 2,600 BCE, because the desert, which is now Sahara, you see that desert now, but 10,600 BC, it wasn't desert like that. It was green and lush, had lakes, tributaries, streams, rivers, and all of that dried up after the last impact, after the last global maximum, which was 21,000 years ago, the Pleistocene Ice Age, which had started to recede 12,800 years ago, and the climate changed and switched to, in the north at least, a more temperate climate, and the impact that happened at that time that changed the weather globally brought in the drying of the Sahara. But we see, when we look at the Sphinx, you see weather or water erosion on the Sphinx, vertical fissures on the body of the Sphinx that could not have been made in the dynastic period, because there was no rain in the dynastic period. So when we look at the Sphinx and we look at the weathering, it's not wind and sand erosion. It is the erosion of water. And the last time that you had torrential rains in that part of ancient Kemet was 10,600 years ago, when there were torrential rains coming from that same cataclysm, 10,600 BCE, 10,600 years ago, that came from when the asteroidal or comet impact happened, and it was above the ice sheet and above water, which threw up steam, which changed the climates, which created torrential rains in Kemet at that particular time. So you have the weathering of the Sphinx. And people say, well, the pyramids don't show that. How can they be that old also? And the pyramids don't show that type of water weathering. Well, the pyramids were covered with the limestone covering up until the time when humans, the Arabs in Egypt, cracked the outer casing on the pyramids and took the pyramids' outer casing off and took it to build the buildings in Cairo. So if there would have been any weathering on the pyramids, it wouldn't have showed up, because the outer casing that was there at the time of the torrential raining was taken off. So it's a lot of information that we're going to be talking about as far as the actual Metu Neter itself. The Metu Neter itself is a technology. It is an algorithm. It is a source of information. And contrary to what people believe about it or think about it, there are several levels to the Metu Neter. The Metu Neter is, of course, a way to convey knowledge through the glyphs themselves, the reading and the rendition, different from the cuneiform in, say, ancient Mesopotamia, Babylon, Sumerian, places that whole thing over there, because you have basically arrows pointing in different directions of different numbers and things like that, and it basically what they found is some historical writings and renderings, and they've dealt with things like law and court cases and land disputes and things like that. But the Metu Neter can convey poetry and feelings and things like that, because a picture is worth 1,000 words. And there, as I said before, there are different levels of Metu Neter. There are different thought processes that go along with the different levels of Metu Neter. Metu Neter was meant in the priestly caste to be viewed under the influence of the tryptamine hallucinogens, meaning DMT and psilocybin mushrooms, whereas the trip is the trip into the Metu Neter. In other words, the world that the pre-dynastic Kemetic scientists sojourned in, which built ancient Kemet. They built ancient Kemet from the bringing back information from their trips. It's just like when people say, "Oh, the aliens," I hope we don't go into that. The aliens built the pyramids. It was the brothers and sisters in ancient Africa that built the pyramid and things like that. And I agree wholeheartedly. Not the ones during the dynastic period, but their predecessors built those things. But they built them with information that is alien information. In other words, transdimensional information. They went into the DMT compendium or the mushroom compendium of knowledge in separate realities and different dimensions, and brought back the information on how to build these things. Because we have to really understand that this is a very young universe. It's not old enough. There's not been enough time for people to be building pyramids and and for humans to be talking, for there to be mammals on planets. There hasn't been enough time. The calculations for building one amino acid is something like 10 to the 168th power. And that is longer than, is trillions of years longer than this universe has been in existence, just to make one amino acid. So it is almost 100% likely, or not likely, but it's almost 100% that this is an arranged construct that I'm gonna tell you the time. I'm gonna try to maybe explain some of the time when you're talking about 10 to the 168th. If you had say you had an inchworm, and that inchworm had to travel from one end of the universe to the other end of the universe, and that inchworm is moving a foot a year to cross the whole universe. And he is taking one atom at a time of all the atoms that exist in the universe, and he's only inching a foot a year. He would be able to take all the atoms in the universe across the universe and back before you reach the same timeline as 10 to the 168. It is a tremendous, it's like 100 million billionth trillion. So it's just it's unimaginable, the size of this number. So that would be just to, by chance, in all the universe, different chemicals bouncing together, and you come up with a amino acid, an enzyme, and it would be, and put all those together in a cell, it would take 1 trillion times more than 10 to the 168. So it is almost certain that there's an organizer to this. Now, some people call it God and all that kind of stuff. Some folks call it programmer. Some folks call it their own higher self playing a game. You know, kind of like Kirk and Spock, you know, flying across the universe, and they get to Ceti Alpha 7, you know, and that's the, like, you know, Pleasure Planet, or, you know, R&R and things like that. So, you know, you've done so many things in the universe. You say, I'm gonna play a human on Earth, you know, and mess around there for 70 years or so, then get back to, you know, my regular job. So Metu Neter, under the influence of the psilocybin mushroom, is a technology. At lower doses, the Metu Neter becomes animate on the papyri or papyruses that you are viewing, or the frieze on the wall that you are viewing. It becomes animate. They start moving around the wall. They start talking. At higher doses, the Metu Neter, say you're in your bedroom and you've taken 25, 30 grams of mushrooms, and you're looking at a papyri in subdued light at the height of your mushroom excursion, those characters would then three-dimensionalize from the two-dimensional papyri and step off into your room, and you'd be there with the actual characters inside of the papyri inside of your room. And they would, you know, talk to you and tell you what's going on, and you could ask them questions and things like that. And that's how the ancient Kemetic people, not the dynastic, not the recycled dynastic people, but the ancient Kemetic people did. That's how they built Kemet. That's how they came back and drew what they saw and took the writing from different dimensions and brought it to the earth. It was downloaded from the heavens to the earth. You took the mushrooms, you went to heaven, you saw the powerful beings there, the exotic entities with birds' heads and human bodies, and, you know, crocodiles with hippopotamus heads and lions' feet and these type of things. And they brought these things back and they drew on the walls, carved on the walls, painted on the papyri, what they saw there and what was taught to them there. So the information is in the papyri. It's in the carvings of the wall, the reliefs, what they saw. So that information is still there. So it's still accessible, because time as we know it, linear time, is not the same in the entheogenic realms, in the other dimensions. So taken at the higher doses, at the high doses of mushrooms, you go into the actual papyri and you're there in the world, or you're there in the place that the Neteru or the exotic beings are inside of the papyri, you're in that world for 6 to 8 hours. Because the mysteries of this thing is so deep and so vast that it is unimaginable. This is not a small thing. This is part of the core of reality and how we phase and interconnect to the true source of what is consciousness and what is life, and how we relate it to what we're doing now and things like this. So the Metu Nete is on several different levels. Some you have to transparentize the walls. There are dosages inside of the DMT compendium and the mushroom ingestion that you read in a wave. In other words, the walls become transparent, just like when, in Minority Report or in, the Avengers, when Banner and they have their computers and they're moving characters in the air and things like that. These are the things that came out of entheogens. That's how you got the doggone MRI and stuff like that. You take your doggone entheogen, you put on your mask, and it shows you the brain scan. It shows you the thyroid. It shows you what's going on with the person's body. That's why they say, the witch doctor, he got his witch doctor mask on, and he got his horse tail, and he's got, a spear and things like that, because he's manipulating energy on higher levels, because he has taken the entheogen that gives him the ability to be able to see. It's no different than augmented reality of what we have now. All of these are the ancient techniques that are reemerging on a different level in modern times, because things go in cycles. And since this is a lower vibrational cycle, we have different technologies that are not as high as the vibratory rates of the ancient technologies. Whereas, everybody wants to be everything nowadays, but your family may not be part of that lineage because we have confusion. We don't look at things like time travel and family and DNA and all of these different types of things, and houses. And we talked before about the houses. Per Ankh, the house of the Ankh. Per Nete, house of the Netes. Because as I said before in previous lectures, the house is the most important. Per Wasir, that is the proper name of Osiris. That's where you get the wisdom from and the sorcery from, the Sokar sorcery, sorcerers of darkness that are part of the Per Wasir, the house of Wasir, the house of Osiris, the house of Ansar. So, as we have these different types of technologies, when we put on the falcon mask, or we put on the mask of the cow, or we put on the mask of whatever, those are different worlds and different dimensions and technologies that project from the entheogenic realms of several different dimensions into the dimensionality of the temple, which are places of science. See, the science that they have now is incomplete. because it only has a connection to the physics of this particular three-dimensional construct. And it's a construct. It's a simulation. It's an algorithm. And these simulations that I embedded within simulations and people are thinking that, oh, this is base reality. And if you take a psychedelic or entheogen, you're not in reality. You're trying to escape reality. No, it pulls away the Maya. Just like the Mayans, just like in India, Maya, illusion. It pulls away the illusion and gives you a deeper access into consciousness and how consciousness relates to the macroverse and the microverse. How far out can you go? How far in can you go? But if you're just stuck in the middle with 3 dimensions and 5 senses, even, string theory which is something you can do absolutely nothing with, says that there's 10 dimensions, a possible 11 dimensions. Little guy in the wheelchair who just passed on, Stephen Hawking said that there are infinitesimal or infinite dimensions. That means dimensions go on forever. There's no number to it. But scientists want to break it down to where it's fashionable for them, other than saying, look, this stuff goes so far, we don't know what the heck is going on. We just trying to use as much as we can to get as much access as we can, because it's about access and how you access the Metu Nature, how you access the mandalas, how you access the magic carpets, how you access the puzzles and labyrinths. These are tools, and the tools that they access, such as the mushroom accessing the Metu Nature, is how your consciousness fuses and phases with higher dimensional beings and higher dimensional constructs. So when we say, when you get to the, if you take a meter and divide it and keep dividing it and keep dividing it and divide it and divide it and divide it, and then when you get to the Planck wall or the Planck length, which I talk about quite a bit too, 10 to the negative 35, you can't half it again. But it is that unity, the unhalfable unity below the Planck length, that is the beginning of where we start off from. Not in the beginning sense, but we start off from in dealing with projecting into the macroverse. That's why the ancients say they come from the stars. But they don't mean that in the sense of that's where it all began with the stars, because there's matter. In other words, there's pre-photon, there's pre-electron, there's pre-neutron, there's before all that. So the construct that we have, it could be some 15-year-olds in the future, high school science project that we're walking around in right now. Or it could be a 7-year-old's, project that he's showing at the state, scientific project contest. Look, I've made a whole universe. It's got different beings in it. Here's a planet I call Earth. Here's the sun. Look, I put gravity in there and electromagnetics and all this kind of stuff. Well, that's really a great project, Timmy. But it's not really something that will win first prize. you may get the yellow ribbon instead of the blue ribbon, but come back next year with something a little more interesting, because we've had quite a few universes being made this year, and yours is kind of, on the shoddy side. So that's that could be your masters of the universe out there, Didn't even win the blue ribbon at the elementary school science project. Because there's stuff out there that's so grand and so magnanimous that, it's kind of like that. But for this to be just a spontaneous from nothing into this little universe of ours is next to impossible because the numbers are too large. I, myself, under many excursions, had to realize that all this stuff is built on numbers, and some of the classes out there, where they're manipulating numbers and moving universes and creating planets and creating solar systems and things like that just by changing characters and and you sit out there in the class and what the heck is they doing? I struggle with algebra back on Earth, But the thing is that it's all based on numbers, and it's all based on computer code, algorithms, and things like that. It's not natural, spontaneous, nothing was there, and all of a sudden, for no apparent reason, the nothing just exploded for no reason. It's been there since it's been there, and all of a sudden it just decides to explode into a big bang and create this universe. Nope. Somebody shook some dice and slung them out into the darkness, and this is what came up. So Metu Neter is not just the Metu Neter. It is all the technologies of the Earth. And the reason why I backed up off of it in the translation area of it is because it wasn't, the sensibility of it wasn't lining up with my understanding of it entheogenically. I'd rather, would you rather go to the movie and see The Lord of the Rings at the movies like we see them, or would you rather go to the movies and pay the other $3 and see the 3D, or would you rather go to the movies and put on the virtual reality glasses and be inside of a bubble where you can walk around and you be in the movie and be one of the characters in the movie? It's a whole different vantage point then, Okay, I'm going to be, Frodo, or I'm going to be Gandalf, or whatever. And you walking across the mountains, and you feel the cold when you go down in the cave, and you feel the heat from the dragon, and you're seeing all this in three-dimensional reality. When you fall, you really feel the sensation of falling. If you're riding a winged beast, then you feel the wind on your face, and you feel the feathers under you that the giant bird that's taking you. This is the difference in being able to entheogenically go into these places, and that's what I chose. There are time machines, time machine trees and forests that are just like they talk about in The Lord of the Rings or whatever. This forest is evil. It has evil intentions, and you go in there and you go from a bright sunny day, and then you go into Mirkwood or Morbid World or something like that, and it gets dark and foreboding, and the miasma of the smells of rotting leaves and things like that you smell. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about actually being existent in different realms of reality. You know, there's places that you go into in far away, foreboding, forbidden places, and you go into these places, and it may be a cave, it may be a part of the forest, it may be a desert, it may be any of these places. And you go in there and things change, and you're like, oh, I'm in a different spot. You know, that's why I always, entheogen people, I tell them you should read the works of Carlos Castaneda, at least the first 5. After that, he gets kind of off track, gets off into himself, you know, that he's the head honcho sorcerer. But the first 5, you know, the Yahweh knowledge and separate reality and all those first ones, you know, he's breaking it down a lot like it really is. I know some anthropologists and other people will say, well, Carlos Castaneda made all that up. Well, if he made all of it up, he did a pretty good job. That's kind of like Plato when he talked about Atlantis. You know, he got the information. You know, the information is in the Critias and the Timaeus, which are 2 of his works, and what that is talking about is, you know, some of Atlantis, you know, and he's just reporting, you know, what he heard in these 2 works, and he learned it from Critias the Younger, who learned it from his father Critias the Elder, who learned it from his father Dropidas, who was a contemporary of Solon. Solon traveled in 600 BC or so to ancient Kemet, and when he got there and started asking questions, the priests said that the Greeks are like children. They know nothing of the mysteries. And when he asked them, and going through the different records and things like that, because he went through the records of what was later to be the Ep-5 building text, which talks about the time of the primeval hills and the great flood and things like this. So they told him that 9,000 years prior to the time that Solon was there is when Atlantis sunk. And then when we add up the time with the date that we have now, and we put his 600 years on the 2,000 that had been since the Common Era has come about, that goes back to 11,600 years ago, which is the exact time of the Younger Dryas impact cataclysm that created a great flood that affected the whole world and deluged many different places, you know, and especially decimated North America. You know, we have a lot to start researching on North America, the first peopling of North America, the megafauna of North America. Megafauna is, as I told you in previous talks, any mammal over 100 pounds, and all of these giant mammals were destroyed in one afternoon because of the impact in Saginaw, Michigan, which created Saginaw Bay and Lake Erie. A comet moving so fast, close to 100,000 miles an hour, hit the North American ice shelf, and it knocked ice all the way, big-ass pieces of ice, all the way from Michigan to North Carolina. It's like you got a 6-foot ice sculpture, and you take a sledgehammer and hit it, and the big chunks of ice that fly out in all directions, these doggone ice chunks, some of them go out into the ocean, Some go out west, some go south. And the ones that go south, they created what is called the Carolina Bays, which are these elliptical depressions in the ground in North and South Carolina that, many of them are filled with water now, and they call them the bays, and North Carolina Bays, and it melded water, millions and millions of gallons of water, sending inland tsunamis across the land, creating the scablands in Washington State and overflooding Lake Missoula in Montana and the Colorado River, swelling its banks up, and on and on and on. And not just destroying the different ancient structures that were there, but dragging trees and things like that. Then the second part of it is that the airburst caught the whole bottom of the country all the way down into Mexico and South America on fire. And you have actual, what's called the Younger Dryas impact, and it left much of the internals of this comet or asteroid in its wake. Things like iridium and platinum and palladium and diamonds and microspherules and melt glass and miniature buckyballs and all of these different things at the exact time that Plato said that his ancestor Solon learned from the Kemetic priests that this last major impact happened. They said there were 6 others before that they had records of, that they put later on the walls of the Temple of Edfu, which is the Horus Temple of Edfu. The Edfu Temple is a Ptolemaic temple, a new temple from the Ptolemaic times, probably around 300 BC, but it's made on top of temples, on top of temples, on top of temples, and that's the same thing with Dendera and other temples in Kemet. They have built temples on top of temples, and the time is so long and so far forgotten that they don't even know how old these temple complexes are that's on the bottom of these doggone things, going back millions of years, because you had other older impacts, whereas humans and humanoids have been on Earth and been destroyed out. So Earth talks about different, they talk about it in India, and they talk about it in Peru, they talk about it in China, and they talk about it in here, the Hopi and the others talk about it in North America. They talk about it in Mexico, the destruction. And in places like India, they said that they knew that the thing was coming, and they got in their vimanas, which were their flying craft, and went up into the doggone atmosphere. Some folks say they went to the doggone moon and waited for it to be over and came back. This is all in their so-called myths and legends. So Metu Neter is no small thing. We need those who are translating the exoteric characters into translations that we can learn from. We need them going into the esoteric areas of Metu Neter to be able to experience the experiences. I don't want to just read about what the ancient Kemetic people did. You want to do what they did. You want to go where they went. They gave them the inspiration to be able to do what they did. We don't want to make pyramids. That's not that time. We don't need that type of technology right now. we have other things that we could be gleaning and bringing back and sharing. So yes, Metu Neter is a reading and a rendition. It conveys spiritual relationships between the Netters, between nature itself. It deals with all of the different areas of society, but there's more. There's the spiritual realms. They're the realms of the soul, of consciousness, that are beyond the physical areas of what people think is the so-called real. So, hey, as I said before, it deals not just with the Metu Neter, but it deals with the mandalas and the carpets and the different puzzles, the different areas of knowledge that are contained in relics of power. So places like the Congo, South Africa, places like Peru, Paracas, where they have the Paracas skulls, where they have those couple of hundred skulls that are elongated, with larger cranial capacities. But you'll see the head deformation in all parts of the world. You'll see it in Southeast Asia. You'll see it in China. You'll see it in Africa. And that's head binding because they want the heads of the ancestors. But the actual Paracas skulls, the actual heads, they're not bound and elongated artificially. These are the heads and the capacities of the brain cavity that are natural and normal to these skulls. So we've had different type of people, not just the the Neanderthals and the Desovians and the different other people, that talking about humanoids now. We think and deal with the Australopithecines, which is Deknesh or Lucy. But Lucy is not even a full skeleton. It is bones. You find a throat bone here, and then 200 yards over there you find a toe bone, and then over there you find the skull of some that ain't really human. The pelvic bone don't fit. So they just threw all these things together and said, this is it. The team said, this is one person. It ain't one person. The oldest person is in South Africa. The oldest person is in South Africa in a cave. And they haven't even finished excavating it yet. The one whole so-called oldest person, that's one thing, that's one person. Not, 80 different, some different types of apes, some different type of humanoids and all that kind of stuff put together. No. So the Metu Neter tells us and teaches us that, but it shows us also by going into these realms, by ingesting the tryptamine hallucinogens. The tryptamine hallucinogens are brain chemistry in an exogenous form outside the body, so that you can get at your leisure time the ability to be able to go and to see and to experience. It's not just dealing with endogenous neurochemicals, endogenous psychedelics. Folks want to so badly say, well, can't I just do it on the natural without having to take a psychedelic? Because of the prejudices of the last 40, 50 years of dealing with psychedelics in a outlaw form, in a crazy cultural form that didn't do the psychedelics justice, or the people that did the psychedelics justice, who wanted to share and explain as much as they could, as much as they could fathom what these things actually were and actually are. Because you had a different agenda with the people who were in power at that particular time. Now that things are changing because those people getting into politics and office and stuff like that, you know, they're part of the generation that had, you know, cannabis and things like that, you know. So all of that 1933 reefer madness, you know, you take one hit of the joint and you then acting like you're a heroin addict or something like that, or opium addict, you know. So the people now in the office, okay, well, you know, yeah, well, you know, it came down to, oh, I smoked, but I didn't inhale, to it came down to, okay, well, yeah, I smoked some, I can't say I didn't smoke no cannabis because you got me in pictures smoking cannabis, you know, to it ain't no big deal. So now things are opening up to where cannabis is, you know, started out medical cannabis. I don't like to use marijuana because marijuana ain't what it is, it's cannabis. So started out medical cannabis, then ended up now recreational cannabis. They don't really know how to implement or what to do, and the federal government's still saying it's, you know, against the law, but the tide is turning, you know. Shoot, we got recreational cannabis in Michigan, you know, and I haven't read all the laws and stuff like that, but you could carry you 2-3 ounces in your car in your pocket, and the police stop you for a ticket and see the 3 ounces in your glove compartment and say, dog, that, you know, that's some, you know, good purple pusher or some good don't bang, you know, and give you your ticket for making a left turn, and you leave your stash in your doggone glove compartment, and then you can grow, you know, 25 plants in your backyard and per person and stuff like that. So, you know, it's a whole difference than with places like Colorado putting recreational psilocybin on the ballot. You know, hopefully it passes. But if it don't, it shows the turn of the tide, that these things are becoming more and more acceptable in society because the people now who are in the positions of power have done these things, you know. And more information is being passed that these things are not what people thought they were. You know, this is your brain, and this is your brain on drugs. No. The bad drugs are the one you get over the counter, Advil and, you know, all those different type of things, you know, because it ain't about any medicine killing you. It's about changing your behavior and changing your point of view. Because, shoot, if you take 13 aspirins, you're dead. You're going to be dead as Lincoln. And aspirin has been around since Jesus was a baby. So we have to understand that these things have been since our beginnings. It is what activated our cerebral cortex and what pushed us into reflection on the sun, the stars, the moons, why this happens, not just letting it go and observing. Okay, well, why did this water come down here and drown everybody? Not just, oh, well, people got drowned again. No, it's why. So this activation, it shows us what and where our technology is. It shows us that the pyramids are machines, they're technologies. The pyramid makes its own water. It's an air well. It was the way of, that's one of the things. It was a way of making water in the desert. Air well is a atmospheric condensator. You know, just like in the summertime, you pour some cold water in a glass. The water that goes on the outside of the glass ain't from the inside of the glass. It's from the air. You turn on your air conditioning, the difference in temperature between the heating of the coils and outside of the coils, get that air conditioner drip. And it's the same thing with the pyramids. Warm air, warm, moist air, because even though you're in the desert, the air got moisture in it. that warm air going down into the pyramids, its mass is cool, condenses the air into droplets, and those droplets are collected at the bottom of the pyramid because there's a lake under the pyramid made by the pyramid. It's a way of making water in the desert. It's actually a way of making water any place. They're making atmospheric condensers in Dubai to bring water out of the desert. They're not talking about desalinating seawater and all that kind of stuff, which is an option. But if you can make it out of the air, you can make water any place. There's a company called Water that looks like a, regular, water cooler, but the water is created by a electric current inside of the base of the machine, which is collected, and it's just like an air conditioner, and you're collecting the water in it. That's all it is. But the water is then filtered, put through reverse osmosis, and all that kind of stuff, so that the water is pure without the dust of the air and stuff like that would be inside of the machine. So the pyramids are machines. That's just one level of what it is. Another, it is a teleportation machine and a time machine, of which they have now. They have teleportation machines and time machines. They have them now. They're not, of course, available to the public. They have cloning. They have consciousness shifting. These little new millionaires, that's Charlie Rockefeller and them. They're not new people. You think they're new people.
Baba, was that you in the background? Hello?
Y'all still there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, excuse me. Yeah. These are people whose consciousnesses have been shifted to new bodies.
Wow.
They have these technologies. They're not making them available to the you and I. But you think when David Rockefeller died that David Rockefeller was gone? Nope. He ain't gone. They put his consciousness in another body and gave him all his money.
They got a movie about that.
They've been doing it. Oh, really?
Yes. I can't think of the name of it, but it was like they made like what's your boy from the Matrix? He's in it. Keanu Reeves, and so they expecting him as a scientist to continue to come up, clone these bodies, and they like, we can clone a body in like 3 to 6 weeks, and then when people were dying, they were like bringing them in on a helicopter to see could they experiment and bring consciousness, but they was like, you only got 7 hours to get the person's consciousness out of their body and then put it into, one of these.
That movie came out here a few weeks ago. His family dies in a automobile crash. He takes their consciousnesses and puts them in some little machines, little boxes, and then he clones them and puts the consciousnesses back into his family and, the regular intrigue and stuff like that. But Keanu Reeves that's his niche as far as an actor's concerned. Just like Tom Cruise has a niche, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, before he became governor, had a niche, People are in certain areas, just like, what's the other actress? the one that plays the Black Widow in the Avengers. You know, she's in a niche as far as augmented humans. You know, because doggone it, she in the Avengers, she there with the Hulk and Iron Man and fighting people from outer space and all that kind of stuff. She ain't got no superpowers. She just went through,
right.
You know, the Russian Spetsnaz school. You know, she knows some karate and can shoot a gun real good, but she fighting space aliens and monsters and all that kind of stuff because that's her niche. Because she got her powers from the other movie she was in,
Lucy.
Lucy. You know, all that thread runs through different constructs inside of the Matrix as far as stars are concerned. So why can the Black Widow and Avengers fight space aliens and monsters and wizards and all that kind of stuff? Because she got her powers from when she played Lucy, because it's a continuous line with the psyche of these people. And you know, people say, well, how is she fighting Spider-Man, and Spider-Man got bit by a radioactive spider, and that's where he got his powers from? Well, she ain't do nothing but go to James Bond school in Russia. How'd she do that? Oh, I know. I remember. Because when the bag busted in her stomach and Lucy and she got her power, that's how she used it in the Avengers, because the psyche, the subconscious, doesn't differentiate between Lucy and the Black Widow. So, dealing with the technology, dealing with the lamp of Aladdin, you know, the magic lamp, the sexual power, the jinn, the genie. It's the same thing. You rub the magic lamp. You keep rubbing the lamp. And out the spigot comes the white smoke, because you have made, by rubbing the testicles, the ejaculation come out. How do you tame lions? You tame lions the same way you tame men, through masturbation. Why do you think the lion tamer can come to the lion? Because the lion tamer gives the lion a good time, and he feeds him. And he knows and understands the psychology of the lion. The whip don't make the lion go back. A man is the highest level of energy being thrown off by the brain. The brain uses the most oxygen, has the most energy. And the larger brained animals are masters over those animals with smaller brains. Meaning that a well-fed lion, not hungry, isn't trying to kill nothing, because if it's not some hyenas or some traditional, African dogs or hyenas or something like that, and he got to protect the young, he's not in fighting mode, because he's not trying to kill nothing, because he ain't hungry. Man, lion go sit under the doggone tree. Have you named something? He ain't chasing no people. He ain't chasing no zebras. He ain't chasing no wildebeestes. He don't want no trouble. He gonna go sit under the tree. So, when they let the lion out in the cage, the lion tamer stands tall, and he snaps the whip and pushes the chair forward. The lion don't care nothing about that. He'll snatch that chair out of his hand, grab that whip, and eat him up in a minute if he wasn't fed and he was hungry. But since he's fed, the man looks him in the eye and walks forward, which means the lion backs up. That's his nature. He'll back up until he can't go anymore. That's any animal's nature. I'm cornered. I got to fight my way out of here. It could be a rat. It could be a squirrel monkey. You back it up in the corner, it ain't got nowhere to go. The only way it's going to do is come forward now, because it's got to fight, because it can't back up no more. So he backs the lion to the back of the cage. When the lion gets to the back of the cage, he comes forward. and you think that the lion is coming forward because that's what the trainers wanted him to do. No, that's lion nature. So what he does is he throws that big, thing, the donut, the round thing, throws that in front of the lion because lion instinct next is, I'm going to get a higher advantage. So the lion jumps on that thing so that he can now have an advantage in pouncing on the person. But then the lion tamer backs away out of the sphere of the lion's instinct in a higher elevation. Then, the lion does a couple of tricks or something. Maybe he paws at the chair or growls or whatever, and the man runs away, runs in a circle, and takes a bow. But the reason why is because he's masturbating the lion and he's feeding the lion. So the lion sees the trainer, he say, a good time feel and a full stomach. That's what he sees. So the lion is never tamed because you can piss him off or something and he eat you, just like, the guy in Las Vegas, the two blonde guys the blonde guys who were together, and they had the white tigers, and the tiger got mad at the guy one day and bit him in the neck, and they've been working with the tiger for 30 years or something like that. Tiger's in a town and shit. Arr, you didn't give me my hand job today. But that's what that is. That's ancient Arabic masturbatory magic, rubbing the lamp to bring out the genes, and the gene comes out as the white liquidy smoke. And messing with them doggone jinn out in the multiverse, where they're sitting out there on those magic carpets and things like that, and trying to get you to smoke stuff. Whenever you go out in the entheogenic realms and you take a large amount of entheogens in the three-dimensional world, and you get out there and they want you to take some entheogens out there, don't do it.
Why not?
Don't do it. Huh? Because everybody out there want to give you. It's just like everybody got an agenda, And in the multiverse, everybody got an agenda, What is good for me? What is good for mine? What is good for my house? How do I exchange information? So you gotta stay on your level of power and your level of understanding. No, I'm good. I brought my own. I got some peppermint, sage, and valerian. I'm smoking that, and I'm smoking it out my own vessel. I got a Pinnacle Pro vaporizer, and I'm gonna smoke that. I smoke with y'all, but I ain't smoking that what y'all got, because there's an agenda behind it. You try to give me your smoke. I smoke my own. No, you smoke your shit. I smoke my shit. You sit on your carpet. I sit on my chair. 'Cause just like Thanos and them floating around out in darkness in the multiverse, that's how them folks hang out. They hang out in their chairs. That's where the throne comes from. Sitting out in space, on them carpets, smoking hookahs and all that kind of stuff. Would you like to try some exotic pleasures? Nope, I'm good. I don't need no exotic pleasures. I handle my own. I got my own pleasures that I handle. I don't need none of y'all exotic pleasures. Y'all look a little weird. So no,
now,
that's why modern systems have deities riding. They have the riding of the gods. I don't care who you is. You ain't riding me. I ain't no damn horse. And no, you're not coming inside of my body to possess me. Nope. None of that. All that is a trick. Well, the gods must ride you. He must be inside of your body. Nope. Y'all do that. The old ways don't do that. The old ways are sovereign in the multiverse. I man here, I man there. Nobody ride me. and man in the sense of the male construct, the man construct. Because now, just like in the multiverse, there's a blurring of what you are, and that's just stuff bleeding over from the other dimensions into this dimension, Next, it'll be the next thing is the robotic partners, where you have your partner. In 10 years, most relationships will be between man and machine, woman and machine. Your spouse is a robot. You can get the one to do exactly what you say do. You can get the one to do exactly what you say do. When you're ready, you can change the head and the face. I want the 5200 woman. I got a 4800 woman, and she don't do the new stuff. So I want the new 5200. The one where the nipples light up. That type of thing. I want the new 7 foot 7. I want the new 7800 booty on my woman. That type of thing. Well, with 9 payments of 9,752 credits, you can have the 7,800 booty on your woman. Look, isn't it luscious? Doesn't it gyrate? Can it twerk? Yes, but just 5 easy payments, and we'll download the frequency for that artificially created skin to expand, and the booty will be bigger. You want the new John 700 penis on your man? Ladies, this is the newest thing out. It not only undulates and swings, but it does vibration number 32 and all that kind of stuff. That's all in the works for you. But those people
that's
who
in the
have
5G
access,
rate?
that's 5G, yeah. So you can get a fast download. Shoot, add it right in there. Add it right in while you're in stroke. Because like I said on my last Go Live, when we talked about the new Kohler 5G toilets. Y'all heard that one, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. I listened to that.
Yeah, the 5G toilets, yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that's all part of the 5G. Matter of fact, they call them the 5 and the old 5, the 5 now. But, yeah, that's all part of the 5G technology. But those that have access, those that can deal with moving forward will have a chance to deal with, the 5G technology that's coming out. Because even though it's the repeaters and the antennas and things are going up, AT&T and T-Mobile, Sprint is coming out with its 5G modem, access to the internet, things like that, in a couple of months, and it'll have its Android phone out by early summer. These are the things that are in our wake, and those entities that are controlling the earthly controllers have, given a green light to these type of technologies to be invasive in everyone's lives, and you can't not get it. You just have to be able to be a step ahead of it. The antigens are the only thing that I see that can give you a step ahead to be able to deal with it, at least to be able to work with it, because these artificial intelligences are part of those early algorithms that are here or that came here to be able to hide. They said it in the Avengers. Said Jarvis is beating Ultron. He was beating him from the inside. He was hiding, and now he can't come out. And then he became part of the triune Ultron Jarvis to become Vision. They tell you in the doggone in the doggone movies what's going on. But this is all part of Metu Neter, because Metu Neter is an artificial intelligence. It is an artificial intelligence. It's technology, as I said earlier in the show. What were you going to say?
Is that in the Avengers? Which one of the Marvels were you talking about? That last example that you just spoke, was that the last?
That's in the Age of that's in the Age of Ultron.
Gotcha. Just checking out what's going to be my late night. I wanted to just go back because, like, I know you psychic, even though you don't advertise that part. I know you psychic. We be talking about you behind your back. Be like, yeah, he's psychic. Yeah, Because I was thinking, we only say good things though, because being psychic, is a good thing in my opinion. But I was
because if you were saying something bad about me, I'd have knew it.
Yeah, exactly. I ain't messing with you. Somebody got a new nickname for you too, right? They call you the Quiet Storm, but I ain't gonna say nothing. They listening right now, but it was like, yeah, you the Quiet Storm. You better be easy. I said, I am. She said, he don't want no smoke. You know what I'm saying? But he ain't running from it neither. I said, he sure ain't. But this whole piece came about because things are just, I call it a sequence of events. When you were talking about walking into the mystery, you did something a couple years ago, and there's one of your videos up on YouTube about we steady reading the walls. We going over the Kemet, taking trips, we walking through, take some pictures or whatever, and we just look at the mystery, or we say something about the mystery, but we not walking into the mystery. And I was like, walking into the mystery. And so then tonight you said, hey, 15 grams or higher, they're going to show up right there in your room. Y'all going to have court. So you already answered it. I was going to say, can you discuss just what did you mean by that? But if people are putting it together, especially catching every episode since the first episode, I think it's just been building up to walking into the mystery. And then tonight you talked about experiencing what the ancient ones had before the dynasty, and having what they had because we need that. So can you speak on that for a second? Like, why is it so important? I think maybe in the first show you was like, man, we need them weapons and we need them tools so we can know when to move and know when not to move. But can you, go over that again? Because tonight we have, an unprecedented amount of new listeners. I just want to thank everybody for coming in and just vibing with us tonight. But why is it so important that we walk into the mystery and learn these things? Because it's such a concentrated effort to keep us dumbed down. Why is it important for us to get this information right now?
Well, because number one, it's available, and you have to experience. See, most of our spiritualism, most of the religions are just tales of something that happened long ago, or tales of, well, my teacher's teacher, they used to fly back in the olden days, or they, did this and did that, and, Jesus walked on water and all that kind of stuff. It's all a tale. It's all a, something someone's, third and fourth hand talking about. Well, the entheogenic experience is just that. It's an experience. It's something that you go through, something that you see, something that you feel, something that you can latch on to because it's something that you've seen and you've done, not what somebody's told you. So it's real, and it being real means that you can speak from a place of authority. I say that these people come off the wall because they came off the wall for me. I went in there, and going in there, I can report what's happening when I go in there because we are having a face-to-face, mouth-to-ear relationship. And this is what the ancestors did. It's kind of like In Contact. If you read the book or, you saw the movie with Jodie Foster, when the being who was portrayed as her father in the entheogenic world that she was in, through the technology, through the big mushroom, he said, this is the way it's always been done. We don't know who made this. We're just using it. He said, but this is the way it's always been done. Very small moves. Take your time. You got forever. You've got eternity. You're going to get there. But this is how it's always been done. We show you a tiny piece, and you gain knowledge from that. You gain confidence from that. You know that there's more. The biggest trick religion put on people was that there was death. There ain't no death. That's a trick of control. The ancients saw that you step from this house into another house. You step it from this door into the next door. It was something that was looked upon as rejoicement. Not, you don't say, you don't get all mad when somebody, when the boy or the girl leaves junior high school and goes to high school. They step out of the door at junior high school and step in the door in high school. You don't say, oh, he didn't left junior high school, and he got to go someplace else, but we don't know where he at. Well, you're in high school. So leave high school and go to college. Get out of college, go into the world and start exploring the world. See, I wanted to see the things that I read about. I didn't just want to lay in the lap of, okay, well, we're going to talk about Kemet, we're going to talk about the pyramids. No, I'm going to go climb to the top of the doggone pyramids and sit out there all night and see the sun come up. I'm going to go in the coffin. I'm going to climb the Sphinx. I'm going to run around in the doggone desert. Yeah, the Vatican, where they say this happened in the Vatican, that happened in the Vatican, the Sistine Chapel Cathedral, and all that kind of stuff. No, I didn't say, I don't want to go to Europe. That's the white people's place, and ain't nothing there. Africa is beautiful. Yeah, shoot, the rolling hills of Scotland and all that kind of stuff is beautiful land. The world is land, and it's all beautiful. I mean, of course, there's some crazy places, that's out of town. But what I'm saying is that it's a big world out here, and it's still a mystery. There are places on earth people ain't been, that no step has stepped on. There's still strange, mysterious things in this world. But we're caught up in whether Donald Trump's going to get his wall, whether the Democrats are going to fight the Republicans tooth and nail for this wall. That's all distraction. And no president ever made no difference. See, I can only speak from my experience. And no president that's ever been made no difference on my life. I'm still going to do what I got to do. I'm still going to go where I want to go. And when they say I can't go, I'm still going to go or find a way to go, because that's what my training's brought about. So I'm not worried about distractions. Last time we was on here, 2 times before this, what is this, episode 5?
Yes, sir.
This is episode 5? Okay. At episode 2, what were they talking about? R. Kelly. Now everybody forgot R. Kelly. The next thing is getting ready to come up because the spring equinox is coming up. So they're going to have something else for you to distract you. Jay-Z, Jay-Z's whatever, Puffy so-and-so, or Suge Knight, does such and such in jail, or, some other distraction that don't mean nothing in the halls of time and power, is put forth for people to be distracted by, to stop you from keeping your eye on the prize, because that's this month, the eye on the prize thing. Get drugged through the street, get hit with water hoses, talk about Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, W.E.B. Du Bois, Marcus Garvey, run that February program, because it's an algorithm, it's a program, it's a level of distraction, Is Dr. So-and-so, what do he do with the money? Is he going to make the school? You people talking about schools when people are dismantling schooling? When they're talking about, when they're having conferences, they got the doggone IBM quantum computer, the IBM quantum computer conference going on, and they're talking about downloading years of schooling into people's heads and consciousness and stuff like that, and you still talking about the 150-year-old model of German schooling. Get an A or a B, sit down and sing row, row, row your boat. You people need to quit. Schooling is dead. It was dead 100 years ago when they brought it out. You don't need to go to your kids don't need to go to school. You got a doggone phone that's got everything on earth in it. So, and you're talking about sitting 12 hours in a doggone school because your mama said, because this month the program that we run is that they wouldn't let us read. So now that we can read, you need an education. And you got to have that education. You got a computer at the doggone house. What education you need? If you want to learn how to swim, you're going to take a swimming class. You got a lot of free stuff going on at the library and all that kind of stuff. But you're talking about, what's his name, the psychiatrist, whatever, that boy who walked around and got all that money to have a school, huh?
Dr. Umar Johnson.
Umar Johnson, yeah, him. Talking about building a school, a school, a factory, where the most important thing in school was floor wax, gas, toilet paper, teacher pension funds, all of those different type of things. Get out of the 19th century.
He said it's your fault too, brother Baba Kilindi, because you wouldn't help him raise a whole $1 million. He said you black folk only help him raise $500,000, and that's not enough because the black boys have to go only to a black school taught by black men.
Well,
that's the only way we win.
Well, he didn't get the other $500,000 because he didn't admit that he's a doggone man. He ain't married to nobody. Huh? The stripper wasn't married to nobody. He's walking around talking about he's celibate. So what the heck? The girl was, the girl was. Why would you say no? I ain't having sex. I'm celibate and stuff like that. And you rolling with this girl? Don't make no sense. That's why you didn't get the other $500,000. And then you're gonna argue with everybody. But if you're out here, you have to be accountable to the people. If you're taking the people's money, tell them what you're doing. So
you need to come sit down.
I don't know. That's why.
Grams.
What's that?
I said he need to sit down and take him about 7 grams and relax a little bit, see what's out here.
Yeah,
go back
well,
since he
said I ain't real confident. I ain't real confident in that.
Ooh.
People who are narcissistic have a real hard time because they can't let go enough and trust the process enough to be able to let go so that they can get some information and things like that. They fight it and end up having difficulties, and nothing wrong with having difficulties. Difficulties are part of that. That's how you grow. That's how you strengthen yourself. That's how you gain your power, by encountering things that you conquer. And look back, it's like Amos Tutuola's work, The Witch from Remote Town, where he had his first mind, his second mind, his remembrance, and all of the different levels of his consciousness, where he could go back and reflect in his memory and said, I was a great hunter. I conquered the beasts of the forest. Now this wild man comes and encounters me in the bush. I think back to those times and see that I'm powerful, that I have courage, so I can fight this wild man who has encountered me in the bush. A great book, The Witch of Remote Town. Amos Tutuola at the end goes into, the whole great God thing being Jehovah or something, but the book itself is classic African epic.
The Witch of Remote Town?
The Witch of Remote Town, yes. Just like My Life in the Bush of Ghosts and The Palm Wine Drinker. When they were looking for movies, but see the My Life in the Bush of Ghosts, Disney's had that for 25 years and won't put it out. Classic Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, My Life in the Bush of Ghosts, and The Witch of Remote Town. Classic Star Wars, Doom, Lord of the Rings, that whole type thing stuff about going into the bush of Africa and encountering the coal man who blows coal air out of his stomach and frees you up, throw you in his bag, get ready to eat you, all that kind of stuff. Nice works, But the thing is that the reason why is to be able to have legitimate spiritual experiences, not talking about it, not, I vibe up and I feel this and all that kind of stuff. No. It's the same thing that I said about crystal technology. Crystals are room temperature quantum computers. They are particle accelerators. They are hooked to consciousness and encoded for the entheogen, because that's what we utilized in the olden days, crystal technology. They've usurped it and brought it into the Superman universe. They did that with Chris Reeves. The crystal technology of which he went and put the crystal in the machine in the Fortress of Solitude up in the frozen north when he was there, and he put the crystal in the machine, and his father steps out and says, "You are my only begotten son that I have given to the earth. You travel through the 28 different galaxies to learn all the different things that I'm going to now reinforce in your mind, because they're there embedded in your knowledge base." And when in Superman 2, when the three ruffians came, General Zod, the big stupid guy, and the girl, which is Jay Ballou, Joe Ballou, and Jay Ballum of the Masons, the ones that caught the master builder Hiram Abyss and hit him in the head with a set maul and buried him in the rubber sheet, where a sprig of acacia came out, and the Enid Apprentice tried to raise the master from the rubber sheet with the Enid Apprentice grip, and the skin cleaved from the bone. And what it's saying is, if the skin cleaved from the bone of a sprig of acacia, that's the acacia bark, that's DMT. That's how DMT is encoded in the masonry. And the fellowship craft tried to raise him with the second degrees and the skin cleaved from the bone. But then the master mason went and grabbed him with the lion's paw and raised him from a dead level to an upright on the perpendicular. And he became again a living soul, a new man. So the three ruffians and Superman, he gave up his power. For what? He gave up his power for the woman, Lois Lane. And then when he went and got beat up in the doggone restaurant, he said, I got to go back. So he went back to the frozen north. He crossed snow into the frozen north, into the Fortress of Solitude. And while he was there trying to invoke his father who would not come, he saw the crystal glowing. And the crystal taught him how to be Superman again. And the crystals can teach each and every one how to be the Superman again, or the Superwoman again. Because we left mnemonic devices of memory with information in it, encoded in it, to be released under the influence of the entheogens. But if you don't take the entheogens, you just got a crystal. It's like having an Android phone and you don't know how to push the button to turn it on or how to charge it up. You just got a black box. And 1,000 years from now, if an asteroid hit this planet and did what it did in the Younger Dryas, come through here with waves, knock down St. Louis and Detroit and New York and Houston and Atlanta and all that kind of stuff is nothing but rubble, and they find an old Android phone or old Apple phone, and they say, oh, what is this? I don't know what it is. Yeah, but 1,000 years ago, people used to use these as magic mirrors. So they put them in the museum, or you get them. And there's a new spiritual age going on. And they found these phones, and they take the phones and they put them in a circle and put a candle in the middle. And everybody lay down and meditate around these Android Galaxy number 9s, and say, this is how they used them. This is how they used them. They laid down and meditated on them and thought about them and did yoga postures in front of them and all that kind of stuff, and hang them on your neck and all that kind of stuff. And me walking around taking entheogens and say, hold it, wait a minute. This is a technology. But, oh, yeah, sure, Kilindi, it's a technology. It's a spiritual device, I put it on my altar. I put 6 or 7 of them in my bath water with some rose petals. And it makes me feel like the goddess. I'm like, look, this is a telephone that connects to the internet. You got to push this button. You see this button on the side? Oh, I never noticed that before. Well, you stick this wire in it, and you charge it up, push the button, ding, 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 Look, it's got I Love Lucy in it. It's got Miles Davis. Hey, what else it's got? It's got the whole encyclopedia in it. So I'm taking that phone and putting it out here and saying to my brothers and sisters, look, you got to push the button. But you got half the population talking about, oh, crystals is pseudoscience. I don't want nothing to do with no crystals, because that's pseudoscience. I'm a scientist. I only believe in materialism, what I can see, feel, and things like that. But I'm saying, all you got to do is push the button. I'm not pushing the button because I don't even deal with crystals. Then you got the other folks, they woo around the crystals. Crystals are a spiritual so-and-so. Yes, they're spiritual so-and-so, but you still got to push the button. You still got to type in the password. If you don't have internet no more, because the internet been gone for 1,000 years, you still have the memory in the phone. So the person who had the phone, he downloaded, Lord of the Rings and The Matrix and, High Noon with, that old actor, whatever his name is, John Wayne or somebody like that in there. So it's got movies in it. It's got information in it. All that. That's all I'm saying. Just push the button. Just take the dose. Just get you some mushrooms and take the dose. It's only going to take you one evening to get a glimpse of what I'm talking about. Mushrooms are not addicting. They're actually anti-addicting. I'm sitting here myself now thinking about taking some mushrooms Saturday. But I thought about it last Saturday and I didn't do it. So it's anti-addicting. It ain't something you want to do. It's something you have to do. You can't kill yourself with it. You can't kill yourself. It's next to impossible to kill yourself with it. You can't eat enough to kill yourself with it. Physically, it's the safest. It's safer than Reese's Pieces in the Kit Kat bar. Safer than a cup of coffee. Well, what about my heart? And shit, you're drinking 7 cups of coffee a day with 16 sugars in it. And you're talking about something that that has little effect on you physically. Yes, it could be psychologically challenging in your mess. In the beginning, it will bring up things you don't want to face, so that you face them and get over them, get past them. Then it opens up into new vistas, new ways of thought, breaking down barriers, prejudices. We have prejudices. They got to do with race or anything like that. You got prejudices, you know. You like this football team instead of that football team. Show you where I'm at. I didn't even know there was no doggone football game last weekend. So what do you think about that game? I was like, what game? You know, the game. What game? Was something happening last weekend? Something happening today? What happened? Because I'm too busy dealing with adult stuff. I stopped playing games when I was a kid. Grown-ass man sitting there, ain't got no money, sitting around wasting time looking at folks playing football. Get you some doggone mushrooms and see how the multiverse play football. Woo! That you got a galaxy moving on another galaxy. See how that outcome comes about. Because maybe not right now, but ultimately, in your moving through the multiverse, you got to deal with that. You got to account it. Get in the big game. You know,
it's rocking and saying, damn. Right.
You know, when you're great people and you're great, you don't need to keep saying you're great every February. We know we're great. Let's do some great things. Well, you see why nobody call me for Black History Month no more to speak.
No.
I'm tired of we built I'm tired of we built the pyramids. Yeah, okay, I know we built them. You know, I know we was great. The Asante, you know, and others, the Zulu, the Indibele, the Dogon, the great Asante people. Okay, well, why were they great? What was the reason why they were great? Because Asante, or the Asante folk, are those who came together for war because they were being oppressed. And so they came together in a confederation for war. And everything in their society is based upon being ready for war. But they lost that. The Zulu. I've been to South Africa. I've talked with Credo Mutwa. So what does the Zulu mean? Zulu means star traveler. People don't know that the Zulu has 300 different hallucinogenic compounds. 300 different, including mushrooms, including war mushrooms that they use against the British. Internal strife, internal conflict is what feed us and everybody else all over the world. Folks in charge couldn't beat nobody physically. Because with all the might of the United States Army, they couldn't beat the Vietnamese. They in holes they dug for the French. Every time they chased them around that little bit of island, little bit of landmass, twice the size of Manhattan, they can't find them because they go down in the hole. Now they sitting around every place you go, pho, Vietnamese street food. I can walk down here, I can't even find a barbecue joint. Not that I eat barbecue or stuff like that. There's macaroni and cheese and some mashed potatoes and yams and stuff like that. I can't find one, but I can go right there down the street and find a Vietnamese street food.
Yep.
And the same veterans that walking around here that ain't got a dime to get on the bus, who fought in Vietnam, who got Agent Orange and all that kind of stuff flying the Vietnamese, who's sitting here selling pho noodles for $11 a bowl of noodles with some spring onions in them. You're going to walk past the same people that you fought and was killing right up the street here. Because this is a trick. It's a joke. It's foolishness. So
Bob, I got a call. I got
artificial intelligence. Okay, let's take some calls.
No, go ahead and finish that thought. Go ahead. I got two callers though. I'll just let you finish that thought. Go ahead.
I forgot what it was, but
you said the Metu is a tech. Artificial
technology is artificial intelligence. Yes, it's a computer algorithm. That's what MetaNet is. And to be able to access that in real time is about taking the dose. Let's get some calls.
All right. First caller from the 336-416. Mic is wide open. Brother Amsu, how you feeling today, brother?
Feeling great. Feeling great. All right. How the brothers doing this evening, Baba Kilindi? Everybody?
Well.
All right. Yeah. It's tonight reminds me of putting cayenne pepper on top of jalapeno peppers and feeding somebody with a slingshot. But the thing is, you mentioned Baba Kilindi in regards to the machines, the robots integrating and interfacing with human beings. Is that the obvious way that it's going, or is there a neutralizing factor for us, that we could take in regards to the entheogens, or what's the line of defense, if there is any, from your perspective on because I've seen some of the some things on on YouTube or on television in regards to people marrying robots or things like that. So just want to get your
that's going to be the thing. Just don't marry a robot. You ain't got to sleep with your dustbuster. You just it's about knowledge, but people would be seduced into those areas, and it will become commonplace. There will be no stigmas. So this will be the move towards normalization. I mean, it'll be. It's like now you can be upset about the different transgender people, things like that. But in the very near future, you'll have changelings, people who can change their sex, being able to be a woman, a full woman at night at the club, and the next morning be a man to go to work.
Oh, I'm going to get married tomorrow.
Those type of things. Those type of things. Those type of things. You'll have multiple sexual people. Just like you had the hermaphrodites, but you'll have people who choose to be hermaphrodites, because with the CRISPR gene editing tool, you can make hermaphrodites. You can put sexual organs in different places. You put sexual organ in your armpit or behind your knee. These type of technologies they're not future technologies. These technologies are here now. But you got to gradually introduce it. You have to put a covering over other things to see how people take it. I was looking at TV. You have a whole section, a small section of society that are adult babies. You got grown men who are babies and pay people, they defecate in their diapers and they crawl around the house and, and they are trying to get legislation so that they could be recognized as adult babies.
Wow.
So you got all kind of stuff coming through the pike, NAMBLA or whatever it is, the whole man-boy love thing, you got that. They're putting in legislation so that you can have legalized pedophilia. So, you got all different types of things coming down the pike, and you can't take none of them to heart. You can't let none of them knock you off your square. You have to these are things that are going on that are happening, but you have to stay aloof and alert in dealing with the multiplicity of different types of persuasions that are going to be legitimized by government and people's, and people's the way they deal with their sensibilities in life. It's a crazy time. But this is the crazy time. My grandmother used to say, these are the last days, these are the end times, women going around wearing shorts and want to have a job at Chrysler, Now It's buck wild all over the place out here. My grandmother couldn't make it. Couldn't make it in the 21st century. She's trying to talk about it. What is you talking about? That's a lady. No, that's a man.
That's a man.
No, that's a man, that's a lady. And I'm just saying how my grandmother would view it. Me, I don't pay no mind to none of it. I don't pay no mind to none of it because I don't have time to pay mind to anything. You who you are, be what you are, do your thing. This is the time to do it. You could be a loaf of bread, you could be a quarter, you could be a side of flapjacks. I don't care what you are. It ain't got nothing to do with me. I got to keep it moving in the realms of which I have to deal with my existence. I don't have time for all the nonsense. You do you. I ain't on no crusades against nobody. I ain't on no crusades for nobody. I'm not going to be distracted by governmental politics, local or, governmental in the non-local sense. Who the president, don't care. Could be a man, could be a lady. It doesn't matter. Could be black, could be white, because ain't none of them making no difference in my life. It's like when folks be saying, how bad it was in the crash of 97, the financial crash. I'm like, shoot, what financial crash in 97? It's been a financial crash all my life. So what the heck?
Right.
97. What happened in 97 that was such a big deal? Well, they bailed out the banks. Shoot, well, ain't nobody bailed me out, so I don't care. I ain't had no bailout. I ain't had no reparations, and it ain't affected me. George Bush was president. It's the same as when Obama was the president. The same when Clinton was the president. And the same when Reagan was the president. What difference did it make? Not one iota. I still got my house. Struggle to pay the bill. And I know all the stuff and all the jargon and all that.
Right.
Land patents and sovereign immunity and all that kind of stuff. And all that stuff is well and wonderful, and you may be right. But if you ain't got a bat big enough to knock the shit out of everybody that come to take it, then it don't mean nothing. Because everything these people do, and every time the police come, they got death and the might and money and power of the United States government behind it. And you can wave your paper down there at the court all you want when the judge, who has no power, that can be defrocked, he don't have no oath and all that kind of stuff, said, bailiff, remand this man to the back room and take him down to the county. Waving your paper don't mean nothing. The treaty between the King of Morocco and George Washington don't mean no more than John Hancock signing the Constitution and Thomas Jefferson penning the Declaration of Independence. Don't mean nothing. It's paper. Power has something to do with it. The one with the biggest and the most backup. It ain't the one police. That's why they outlawed at the Council of Toledo. They outlawed polygamy because polygamy was a powerful house and family. It's like when they come when they send it's you, your wife, your son, and your daughter, and they send the police to come and get you out your house. Now all they got to do is send a car, and if you're crazy, they'll send two or the SWAT team. But a man with 20 wives, 122 sons, with 80 daughters, when he put out the call, hey, they coming in here to take me out of here, and he called his 122 sons, and the 122 sons are in their 40s, in their 50s, and they got 11 wives with 45 sons, 50 sons. You're talking about what? The king is going to send the king is going to send the sheriff and 50 soldiers to do what? To get 700 people off the land who are all family and tied to the father. That's why they outlawed polygamy, because polygamy was not only a business that was self-sufficient, it was too many people connected to one another. They had to divide people into smaller units so that they are manageable by the policing forces, the sheriff's forces. And you can't do that with 10 families because you're then dealing with a logistical nightmare. See, during World War II, when they put the Jews in them, when they was taking them and putting them in them concentration camps and on the train and stuff like that, first thing they did was disarm them, with the same type of legislation they have now. You can't have no pistol. You got to have a license. You got to register it. That's what Hitler and them did. They went and got the gun registration thing and went and took everybody's guns. So then, when they came to an apartment building in Krakow or wherever the heck they was going, they sent their 5 soldiers with machine guns and go in there and make everybody come downstairs and stand in line. Then put you on the side of town, lock you behind the fence. And you got a building with 500 people in the building, and 5 soldiers bring everybody out of the building. But if you got 500 people in there and they're armed, then you can't just send 5 people. You got to send at least 500 people. And if you got 200 buildings with 500 people in it, then you're talking about sending a mass amount of people to get people just to come out the doggone side. And you can't do that and fight a war with everybody else on Earth, on 4 continents. You're fighting in Africa, and you're fighting in Europe, and you're fighting in different places around the doggone world, and still having to fight the people in the doggone houses. Farrakhan told him in 1978, he said, if the United States government wanted to fight black people could win. Because you ain't got the biggest army in the world, ain't got but 1 million soldiers, and a lot of that is in cooking, logistics, engineering, all that kind of stuff. How the heck are you going to fight St. Louis, Atlanta, New York City, Philadelphia, L.A. at the same time with an army of only 1 million people? And half them don't fight. 3/4 of them don't fight. You can't do it.
Right.
And still police everybody else around the world. Got bases in Japan, got bases in Germany, got bases in Switzerland, got bases in Turkey, got all this kind of stuff. And soldiers are in all their places, guarding United States interests. Every country in the world got a United States embassy. You got soldiers, you got Marines there at the embassies. So you're talking about 100,000 soldiers fighting and policing, 80 million people. So what does this have to do with Metu Neter? Metu Neter gives us access to hyperdimensional knowledge, extra-dimensional knowledge, ultra-dimensional knowledge, extraterrestrial dimensional knowledge. Knowledge that is timeless, that goes beyond time. Knowledge that is pre-universal, before the organization of this universe. Algorithmic relationship to what is deemed life. It is pre that. It is before that. It is after the future. Access to the multiverse and the infraparticle realms of existence of the very, very small. Metu Neter is a robot. It is an artificial intelligence. It is a place. So I know I'm going to get 1,000 calls about, or deluge with Facebook that, well, brother, you don't even read Metu Neter. Everybody in ancient times didn't read Metu Neter. The people that read Metu Neter read Metu Neter. It's no different than drummers or musicians, like drummers today. It's no different. Everybody ain't a drummer. I'm not a drummer. Chief Bay, Neil Clark, Olukushe, Logic Kamara, all the brothers who were drummers. They told me back in the early 70s, you ain't no drummer. Here, play the bell. And I know I wasn't no drummer. Because back in the day, if you wasn't no drummer, they would take your drum. Brother, you messing up the rhythm. And they take your drum and wouldn't give it back. Not everybody's a drummer. Everybody got a djembe, and you got 30 or 40 people playing june. The drums come in a family. You don't just play the djembes. Then you got female djembe drummer troops, where the females play the djembe drum for the dances. You got Japanese djembe drummers, troops. You got Indonesian people playing djembe. And as I said, you play what you want because they ain't the real drums no way. The real drums still ain't Guinea in Senegal, in the drum houses. I'm talking about them old drums with the shrines inside them, with that black medicine that come from Syria up under the underside of that drum, where it's been circumcised. And you got the pyramidal tying of that drum that was downloaded from hyperspace, how to string them doggone drums. And the entheogens that you took to be able to see in the forest, in the dark, in the night, the drum inside of the tree. Them real drums, if you play them and you ain't a drummer and you ain't part of the drum family, it will kill you and make you sick and you'll die. It'll wither first your testicles and your penis, and then you will die. If you're a woman, you play it, a woman plays it, a woman will die if she plays one of those real drums. But you got them tourist drums and you got them tourist drummers, and I don't care what part of Senegal you come out of, these little boys coming over here talking about their drumming masters. Please. That is a war drum. It is part of the technology of the warrior societies that exist outside of this solar system. They brought that drum here. They used to execute people with them drums, with the frequency of the slap on that drum. Tie you to a tree, one slap, disrupt your central nervous system, and kill you dead. And then chase your doggone soul through
no.
half the universe past that. But people got the drum, one of our sacred drums, that are being disrespected by everybody saying they're master drummer, everybody playing the drum. No, you don't play them drums, and you don't play with them drums. And it is not a woman's drum. I say it because I ain't scared of women. Women should not be playing that drum, sitting with that drum between their legs, or standing with the drum between their legs, because it destroys the womb, because it's a man's drum. Just not to be prejudiced and bashing women. Women have women's drums that were downloaded from the planet of drums that they play, because they're women's drums and men can't play them. Man plays that woman's drum, he'll die, because they're for women. It's okay if men have things and women have things. And everybody's not a god, and everybody's not a goddess. Everybody's not a king, everybody's not a queen. What happened to the shopkeepers, the farmers, the artisans, the musicians, the blacksmiths, the healers, the medicine people? Everybody want to be a healer now. Everybody then took Reiki on the weekend, and now they're a healer. A weekend course, you're a master Reiki practitioner.
Damn!
And the Reiki, the doggone man Usei Sensei, who dealt with and put together the doggone Riki thing in 21 days up on Koriyama Mountain. Just so happens that that's where all the mushrooms at. Where the Tengu Taki, the Tengu, the mountain goblins, the healer and warrior who have birds' heads, human bodies, and wings, who descend inside of the mushroom into your consciousness. And that's where they got ninjutsu from, and the samurai sword, and aikido, or akijitsu, and all that kind of stuff from, and Riki up on that mountain. Just so happens he's up on that mountain. Just so happens the mushrooms up on that mountain. So, to my drum, after my djembe drum, because djembe is close to my heart. Because before that we had captured drums. Then they liberated the drums. Captured drums were the drums with the metal hardware on it. Like the congas with the metal hooks on them that you got to turn with the drum wrench. Brothers started taking the metal off. We're breaking the shackles off the drums. The drums got handcuffs on them. So we broke it off and started roping congas. Then the brothers started coming from Senegal, bringing the djembe drums and things like that, and passing them on to the real drummers here. It's elder drummers here who are sanctioned to play them drums. They don't get no accolades or work and things like that. They get work sparingly and here and far and in between and stuff like that. But let somebody roll in from Senegal, 22 years old, master drummer, come into town, and everybody go crazy. Oh, master drummer, so and such is coming. Listen, you're not even that old until you're 40 years old. You're still practicing manhood till you're 40 years old.
22-year-old man.
When you turn 40, that's when you're a full, whole man. I don't care if you're 39 and you got kids, you're still supposed to be under your father's house, because it don't get passed down to you until you're 40 years old. When your father and the elder men say, okay, you done passed the test, you can have your own house, your own home, or you inherit my house or my home. See, we got a lot of work to do. So we got to clear out all the mess. And the entheogenic realms clear out that mess. It's time for us to embrace what is here and available like it's never been available to the average person in the last 15,000 years, 20,000 years, 30,000 years. When folks were sitting around the campfire eating the mushrooms, having shared experiences with the telepathy. Are there any more online questions? Anybody?
We got one more. Caller from the 404-989. Your mic is wide open. Can I get your name and where you're calling from, please?
Peace. My name is Rashid. I'm calling from Atlanta. Bless.
Peace.
Thank you for the platform this evening, Lord Firewater and Lord Khayr, and thank you for the lecture and the share, Baba Kilindi. My question tonight revolves around prayer. In relation to your speaking on the Meta and its use as a technology, and as in dealing with prayer, we kind of use that as a sort of technology to manipulate or change reality as well. But I was wondering, from your experiences with the mushrooms and entheogens, Is there, or what are your outlooks or your thoughts on the relevance of prayer in today's form versus traditional form, or the irrelevance thereof, and how it relates, or how it's affected by the entheogens?
Well, entheogen is a relationship. That which you pray to now that you can't see, don't have a relationship with, other than in your own thoughts of how that has been related to you over time, be it your grandmother or the system you're in or whatever. Entheogen gives you direct access to whom or whatever you would be praying to in a conversation as equals. You know, you're making a it's like going to, if I go to Khayr's, house and we're going to make a pact to support one another. I'm not just walking around my house saying, Khayr, oh, give me some help. I need some help and stuff like that. And, I get in a car, ride to wherever Khayr's house is, and we sit down and negotiate face-to-face, man-to-man, what are the tenets of how, you're going to support me if this happens, I'll support you if that happens. If Big Eddie, who's 285 pounds, go to beat you up and you ain't but 114 pounds, and I'm 250, you say, well, I can handle all the 115 pounds and all the 120. I may even handle 130, but 270 is pretty tough. If the 270 guy comes, you support me with the 270 guy, So it's a relationship that is based upon the experience of being there and seeing and knowing and relating to whom you would be praying to, which is nothing more than your own higher self, which makes it obsolete, really, because you fold into your higher self, and
right.
there's nothing to pray to. You're just having a conversation with yourself on what you're going to do. So it takes it out of the realm of the theoretical and places it into direct contact, so that it can be utilized from the vantage point of experience.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you. And I would imagine that holds true for things like chanting and or affirmations and things as well. It kind of pushes those aside and makes those irrelevant in perspective.
Well,
Is that
affirmations, positive thinking and thought and all that kind of stuff. Those things are good. But the thing is that, see, when you start to understand your own power and you have access to that higher self in a real time sense, it brings you, it gives you a view from the bridge, as Chancellor Williams would have said in Destruction of Black Civilization. I mean, not Destruction of Black Civilization, whichever one it is, Chancellor Williams' book. But it gives you a view from the bridge to where you can see from a higher vantage point, and that's what you want. I mean, in a regular, everyday, Monday thing, giving yourself a pep talk, that's all fine and well and good. You don't have to fluff that away. But understand that there's a higher level of relationship to the things that you want to have access to. It's like praying to Jehovah or Jesus, or taking your dose and go to Jesus' house or Jehovah's house and have a conversation with him. And then find out that, they ain't what the folks told you they was,
Give thanks. Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for calling.
Thank you.
Thank you for calling. Appreciate it.
Whew, who's gonna be blowing your phone up is these Christians out here, Barbara. But I ain't saying nothing. I got one more caller from the 513-720. Your mic is wide open. Can I get your name and where you're calling from, please?
Greetings, good brothers. This is Chris Enlighten from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Peace.
Peace.
my head. I'm sitting here with my wife, both our heads busted wide open. We just sitting here just excited. We can listen to you talk all week nonstop. And I do have one question. One of my questions is I'm trying to tap into my wealth. Is there any, like, dose that I can tap into, like the reservoir of wealth out there that's out in the ether that could potentially help me now? That's what I'm looking. That's the real reason. I mean, I really want to know all the mysteries and everything. That's great, and I love that. I'm about that, but I'm trying to tap into wealth. Is there any, like, dose I could take to send me to my wealth reserves or anything like that?
Well, that's a funny one, because I taken a dose and I got the Mega Millions number straight, and it was just so absurd that I wouldn't even be worried about money that I didn't even play it, and it came out. You know, so there is that relationship. You know, and I hated myself afterwards though, but you know, it's like, oh man, I didn't miss the number. But you know, I mean, see, taking entheogens is not just a taking them; it's a discipline, it's an art form. And if you take the doses and put the discipline into it, you can tap into that and bring prosperity and wealth and things like that. But see, the way entheogens work, it will make it as you coming in asking us about wealth, and you have wealth. Say you sitting there with your wife. You sitting there with your wife, where you know people are fighting and throwing each other out the window and killing their children and arguing and fussing and fighting and chasing each other down the street and not trusting one another, looking at each other's phone and getting in their Facebook. You already have your wealth. You just need to discipline yourself bit by bit to continue bringing in the things that you need as resources to be able to live your life to the fullest. You know, and that's the way mushrooms talk. You know, you ask them for wealth, and you got the wealth right there. You know, your family is your wealth. You know, that's where your resources flow from. You know, and that's what the ancients talk about. Money is something. I ain't got no money. I'm broke, but if I want to go to Indonesia tomorrow, I can get on the plane and go to Indonesia tomorrow because the resources, the currency will be there no matter what. So I'll be walking down the street and $5,000 to go to Indonesia if that's what I wanted to do, because the universe does that. You know, so that's how mushrooms and the entheogens work. They don't work in that kind of way. But if you put the effort forth and the discipline and the dose, you can invoke that if that's what, like you said, the biggest thing that you want to do. And I don't really think that's the biggest thing you want to do. You know, the biggest thing you want to do is to live your life safely, happily, and for your family to grow. That's the biggest thing.
Understood. Thank you for that answer. I appreciate that.
No problem.
So like, Bob, I want to just get on that one a little bit. When you said if I wanted to take a dose and go talk to Jesus, I'm going to take a dose and go see the Jade Emperor or Lakshmi, because those gods came out of the mushroom. So if I want to jump on my magic carpet and ride over there and have that conversation with her, is that kind of like, am I putting that together right?
Sure, like I told him, it's a discipline. If you want to do that, everything is available for you to deal with an experience. That's what it's just like the Black Panther. When he took the purple herb, he went to the land of the ancestors and the folks were there. And, his father told him, he said, I told his father, he said, I can't stay here with y'all. I still got stuff to do. So I'm going back. But that's what entheogens do. They give you the access to be able to learn from the ancient ones, the sages and stuff like that. That's why I said technologies, just like the mandala. Inside of the mandala, once it opens up and three-dimensionalizes, it's a house. It's a place where the Buddhist sages exist, and you can go in there and study with the different Buddhas and sages of that particular system. And like I just said Jesus and Jehovah for just example aside of that. Don't nobody want to go see them. Yeah.
Who is that?
No, but I get what you're saying because it worked for Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs went over there and told everybody who worked for him, we're going over here and come back with some technology. And right now, I mean, you talked extensively about how Silicon Valley has that subculture of psychotechies. You can call them tech psyches. They all own the entheogens and paying big money to your boy. What's the boy name? Wrote the 4-Hour Work Week. Timothy Ferris to come over there. And stuff like that. So I see exactly, like you said, go over there, ask them what's the technology because that's what people pay for. That's where your wealth is coming from. My translation is when you solve a problem, you come over here and solve a problem, wealth is hunt you down.
Yeah. Well, even the 4-hour work week is too long. But yeah, they're microdosing in Silicon Valley, and utilizing the entheogens to step outside of the box and to be able to break new rules in technology and things like that. Break the rules of technology to be able to go beyond what they thought and figured that they were stuck in. So if you got a problem and you can't get past it, you start microdosing, and that'll give you the ability to be able to look at it from a different vantage point and conquer your problem. Come up with the new technology, the new phase of a particular tool and things like that.
You out here creating some monsters out here, Baba Kilindi, just with the seeds that you planting. I just want to say, myself, I think I speak on behalf of everybody. All of us are eager to put this in the practice and tap into these ancient sciences. My question is, when you're saying we're looking at the papyrus earlier tonight, does it have to be a particular papyrus that came from Egypt, or like most everything is on the internet? Do we print something out, or we can find like different artwork got the glyphs on it, or it has to be the original language of the Metu Nete?
Well, you of course it's better if you had a original papyrus or whatever, but you just want the frequency to be able to get into the realm, because the realm is self-existent. It ain't got nothing to do with the actual area of being authentic or anything like that, because you ain't gonna get nowhere close to no authentic one unless you go be tripping in the museum or something like that. So if you get one that is actually, you can go to even if you go and print something up, like if you went to the papyrus of Ani or the papyrus of Kunefu, or you could get one of the you could even do it off of your computer or something like that. Go to one of the original papyri and go to Kinko's and just get a color copy of it. You could still do it with that, because it's the frequency.
Say no more. Say less, as we say. Thank you, Barbara. All
right.
Next weekend.
Thank you all for having me.
Oh, I just wanted to give you just a warm up. You know, we coming with that tantra next week. We gonna gave you plenty of time to be technical. There's a lot of these sisters still out here paging me after the show asking about, you know, and you gave me a little bit last week about the semen retention, and I damn near got in an argument with her the last night. You know what I mean? He just was. Anyway, that's a whole nother. He's a Montauk Chia guy. But next week because it's the day before Valentine's Day, so we're gonna go ahead and let the sexy out, and then we're gonna do that Young Adrias on the 20th. So next week is Tantra, love, relationships, and what do you call it? What's that you say the glitch in the matrix is when you fighting? What's that? The algorithm. What's the algorithm that's holding us up? Because we gotta beat that. We gotta beat that algorithm. Like everybody, like you and Brother Chris has got a wife. You know what I'm saying? A lot of us out here, it's not working right because that algorithm we fighting, and I don't think people really have realized the program that's in there and the glitch. So I want you to come with the message for the sisters this week around deprogramming.
We'll get into
reprogram.
We'll get into it next week because that ain't a glitch. That's an actual program that they inserted, into the matrix. So it's not a glitch. It's an actual on-purpose program. But we'll talk about that next week. You all have a good evening, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace. Thank you for having me on.
Peace.
Peace.
That one was big time right there. I got to open all the mics to everybody who's on. You know, we got to have the end of this. We got about 4 minutes. Let me open Rashid's Firewater. We got to start it off with you. Then we go on to Amsu. Come on, man. What just happened here?
I don't know what's going on in the heavens. I don't know what's in the air or the water. But I've listened to everything he said online, and I don't know if I've ever heard him go off like that. That was amazing. I'm going to have to run this whole show back. My goodness.
Yes.
Amsu, how you weighing in today?
I like I said earlier, I said that was cayenne stuffed jalapeno peppers tonight. You know, so that was definitely 5 BTUs, everything. And it's good that this information is coming up, the subjects are being brought up, so that we can start to, deconstruct, break it down, look at it and examine stuff and learn some things and, push the envelope so that we can start creating our own realities and be grateful for that.
All facts. Rashid?
Yeah, I feel like we're getting down, or we're talking directly to the ancestors. I feel like we're getting the information that, or we're being reminded, we're being reminded of either past life or other dimensional experiences. And, yeah, it's resonating. I'm blown away, but it resonates. It feels familiar.
Divine Queen, we know you over there in the cut. What you got to say?
Peace, fam. What can I say? My mind was blown. I've learned so much. I'm looking forward to, exploring the brother's mind even more and hearing more, because I know he has a lot more. He's only given us a taste, and I'm ready for the full encore.
Hey, and I'm going to tell you that papyrus I'm going to be looking at is that, what is that 58th scroll of Thoth? Is that what that is, Firewater?
Oh, yeah.
The 58th?
Uh-oh.
The 58th, which one?
What's that?
There's a couple of people making some noises out here. Right.
Yeah.
Right. There's a couple of y'all know what I'm talking about.
Heavy duty.
That's the one with the gates? Is that the one with the gates?
Is that it?
Nah, that's the one with the beings and the green letters.
Yeah, man.
Oh, with the 32 base